Hello and welcome to this video featuring my wife's 2006 Ford S-Max, my wife's broken 2006 Ford S-Max, because once again this car has charging problems. We had some charging problems before we went away on holiday. We actually had some problems with it last year which prevented it from going on holiday and meant that my Citroen C6 had to be substituted to go to France with no air conditioning and a broken gearbox. That was fun. But because I want to get things sorted, because I don't like having a broken car, I'm going to plug this thing in. Now up until recently, I've been using ForScan, which is a piece of software you can buy online. You can buy the adapter to go with it, plug it all in, jobs are good, and it works on Fords. It is quite good, but it only works on Fords. And that's a pain, because this is the only Ford in our family. This is the only one we own. This is the only one I can actually do anything on, unless he brings that bloody Fairmont again. However, things are good, because I've been sent this plastic case. Now this plastic case is yet another example of me selling out to the corporate man, but I don't care. Basically what this is a posh Diagnostics machine. This is an OBD reader with gusto. So when I say OBD, what do I mean? OBD stands for Onboard Diagnostics, and in fact Onboard Diagnostics have been a thing for many decades, but there was a key change in 2001, I think it was 2001 roughly, turn of the millennium basically. It was decided that all cars must have the same kind of onboard diagnostics interface. So you don't need to, like before then, cars had onboard diagnostics, but they all had their own plugs. You couldn't buy one machine that fitted multiple different cars. Yeah, if you bought one that did a BMW, it wouldn't fit a Volkswagen, that kind of thing. And after 2001, it was decided that all cars would be the same, and that became OBD2. And OBD2, that's that connector there. You see? This is a common, you'll see that in your car. That's the female version of it. That's because that's an adapter, but that's the version you see in your car. So if your car is built after 2000-ish, it will have this, and you will be able to use, in theory, any OBD2 suitable software to take fault codes off it. Cars will either have fault codes that are specific, i.e. they only relate to that manufacturer. They're ones that that manufacturer has come up with, written into the software to give you a more precise idea of what's gone wrong with the car. And there are also general ones. General fault codes can be anything like O2 sensors, crank sensor, misfire, cylinder 1, 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, or 5. So yeah, some of the codes are generic and some of them are specific. But if you have a decent reader, you can generally do the specific ones too. That's where manufacturer-specific software like ForScan, or in my Citroen Peugeot's case, Lexia, or Diagbox as they call it now, but that's where that comes in. This is the kind of software that manufacturers used. So it's like if you wanted to do specific jobs on a certain model of car, it was a good idea to have something like that. And it still is. If you've got a Ford, ForScan is brilliant. I'm not going to pretend that it's not. However, if you have a lot of different cars, or you have need for scanning multiple cars, there are other ways of doing it. There are other ways of being able to have that kind of in-depth ability, broad range of cars that can be tested with that, almost that kind of level. Up until recently, it's been a case of, well, you know, companies like Snap-on, they did the Snap-on Solus and the Modus, and you can spend thousands and thousands of pounds on something like that, and they're very, very good. But they're thousands and thousands of pounds. And if you're at home, like a DIY guy, you know, you're an IT guy during the week, you're just doing this, you know, because you want to fix your car. You don't want to spend thousands and thousands of pounds on a professional piece of equipment. And that is where this comes in. So what we effectively have is an Android tablet in a kiddie-proof case that you could, I'm not going to drop it, and a stand. So it has a stand on the back of it. You can hang it from stuff like a clutch bag or something, or you can stand it or whatever. That's basically all that is. Now if I flip this on, it will boot up. Now while that's booting up, I'll explain what this is. This is a TopDon ArtiDiag Pro. I don't know where they get these names from, but this is a TopDon ArtiDiag Pro, and this is pretty trick. This is pretty good. It can do many different things. As I say, it can do the things that specific manufacturer-based onboard diagnostics machines can do, and it can do it across a broad range of cars. Although not a Citroen C6, I have to be completely honest, it will not talk to the C6. I've tried and tried and tried again because I wanted to do a DPF regen because of the problems I've been having with the exhaust on that car. It won't talk. It just will not believe it's connected. So bear that one in mind. My car does. The only OBD connector I've used on that has been Lexia stroke Diag box. I haven't tried any other, you know, universal system like this on that car. So whether there is an issue with the car or whether there's an issue with this not talking to Citroen C6s, but then most people don't talk to Citroen C6s. Yeah, I don't know, but I want to try it on the Ford. This is an S-Max. This is a very common car, so I want to see if this works on here because the S-Max is playing up. So what we need to do, you've got this old school cable. Look at that. So we put that on there. Now you could, if you wanted, plug it into this and charge it up using the USB charging cable while you've got it plugged in. But on this car, and I suspect many others, you don't need to, because this actually something I was quite impressed by. This charges off the OBD plug. So if you've got one of these and you go, oh, I've forgotten to charge it up, doesn't matter. I think that's really good. I mean, that's the first one I've seen that does that, so I'm sure others do. But before I go plug it in, I will just show you a couple of the other things in the box. We have these. You know, I said about cars having specific connectors that aren't OBD2. They're not the universal type, they're the pre-OBD2, they're the manufacturer-specific OBD stuff. There's one, and that is I can tell you what that is. I think that is a Mercedes one, because I've done my research, I've just forgotten it. That's a Mercedes one. That is a Mercedes BZ38 connector. So if you've got a Mercedes before OBD2, or in some cases BMWs, that's a BMW one I believe, B20, yep, so that's the BMW connector. Now these connectors do still appear on cars after 2000, because the ruling was that they have to have OBD2 suitable diagnostics for the general systems, for the engine and everything like that, but for things like ABS, traction control, ESP systems, airbags, that kind of thing, that rule didn't come in straight away, as far as I know. And if you look at a BMW 3 Series, an E46, something like that, they'll have an OBD2 plug. They will also have one of them. And if you want to talk to anything to do with the airbags, ABS, whatever, that's the one you need. So let's put all this away and go and plug it in and see, well, see if it works is probably the best thing. Right. So, in order to access an OBD2 plug, you need to find it on your car. Now, there are certain rules about where they are. They have to be within a certain distance of the steering wheel or something like that. So they're normally in the centre console, or in this car's case, up here behind this flimsy plug, or a flimsy cover I should say, that is half hanging. So, you take your male end, you plug that in, I swear to God this car. Right, so we're plugged in. Now, as I say, it's effectively a tablet, so if I drag down here I can increase the brightness so that you might be able to see it. I'll zoom in properly in a minute, but basically what we're going to do is, now it has an auto detect function, which I'm not sure if that'll work on this car, because this car is not young. It's 2006, so it's 17 years old now. I don't know if this car has that feature. It might. It's got a broken parking sensor, so we might be able to find out which parking sensor is knackered. Right, auto detect. Place your bets. It's done it. There we go. 2006 Ford, it knows. Okay, so we have a number of issues with this S-Max. So we're going to go through the diagnostic process here, and I'll kind of explain why the wipers are on. I'll explain basically what's going on with it, and what the system's doing, and you might be able to see if it's something that you think, oh, that's useful, I could do with that myself. So I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll have a look. So it's a Galaxy or S Max. There's all the spec. Oh no, you know my VIN. Does it have a factory installed Blaupunkt Travel Pilot X navigation system or colour touchscreen navigation with the Ford logo printed below the screen? That's very specific. No, it does not. It's got an Android thing in it, which is rubbish. Loading vehicle data. So as you can see, it's charging in the top corner here. Well, it was. There you go. It's moving. So basically, a lot of these systems do an initial scan before they actually, do anything. They sort of think, well, you're going to want it scanned anyway. And it looks like that's what it's doing. I haven't even opened the instructions. Look, how bad's that? So, oh, we've got some faults. I have a feeling I know what some of these are. I'll explain that in a minute. Not that you care, to be honest. It's not your car. Right, there we go. So it's finished doing its scan. I haven't even registered it to myself yet because shop name and everything is untouched. So we have some abnormalities. Now I can tell you what that now I'll tell you what. Parking aid module. That's a useful one because the parking sensors in this car are playing up. So that could be useful. Instrument panel control. Right, so what that is, those dials there are not the original dials for this car. That is called a Converse Plus system, and that is what later Ford S Maxes had fitted. This one originally had 2 round dials like the Speedo, 1x1, and a red screen in the middle, and those red screens die. Ours hadn't died, but it was dying. And I fitted this Converse Plus with the 4Scan. I had to change the mileage because the mileage on the unit when it came, it was a second-hand unit out of another car, was 100,000 roughly, and this car had done more. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be dishonest. I'm not going to give it a haircut. Plus, it's like a 17-year-old S Max. Who cares? I've managed to update the mileage using 4Scan. Now, I believe I could have done that with this. So that's why it's got codes, because basically it's got codes on there because it's looking for the tyre pressure monitoring system and the keyless, keyless entry and everything like that, which this car doesn't have. So it's looking for those, and it is not set up to not to look for them, basically. So that's what those faults probably are. Now, parking aid control module, that's interesting. Front right inner sensor. Okay, so it's got 4 sensors on the front. One of them's dead. That's good. Well, it's not good, it's a pain, but right. So we're coming back out of this big thing here. So this is pretty sure this is the health check. Oh, that's the diagnose. I think the diagnose is the health check. So there are some different things you can do. Services. You can do things like, some cars, if you change the battery, you've got to tell it. DPF regen, EGR adaptation, coolant bleed. I'm guessing some cars have electric coolant pumps, maybe. We've got now data, I believe, is where if you save some reports, you can store them in there. Battery voltage is, well, that's quite a simple one. Now, this car does have a charging problem, as I mentioned. I'm going to start the engine and see if it does it. So basically, we changed the alternator. There you go, there's the start up. So we changed the alternator a little while ago, and this car has smart charge. And now what happens is when the weather is very cold, well, not very cold, but when the car is cold, when you first start it, it's up at your 14 whatever volts that it's at now, and then it'll randomly drop down to like 13 or 12 or 11. Or I suspect the problem might be that when the car is cold, perhaps it's some sort of battery protection or something like that, but it's probably supposed to do it a little bit more smoothly than it's doing it. So it might not be a fault, it might just be that it's just, not very refined. Now, of course, it's working perfectly at the moment, so I can't even test that. That's a pain. So this is one of the other things it's got on it. It has a library of fault codes on, so if you find a fault code and you want to know a bit more about what the hell that fault code is, let's make one up, P1220, and it's, well, Oh, this is obviously a specific... Oh, a Daihatsu. What would that be on a Daihatsu? It doesn't exist. Why do you ask? What about... No. I haven't got a Daihatsu anymore. Okay, let's try P1000 on a Ford. P1000 on a Ford is that the OBD system's readiness test is not complete. So yeah, if you get a code, you can pump it into there. So you can read freeze frame data, clear fault codes, read vehicle information, read live data. Now I love this sort of stuff. And then if we go for something like airflow rate from the mass airflow sensor, ambient temperature, barometric pressure, catalytic converter temperature, engine coolant temperature, engine RPM, fuel rail pressure. Now the fuel rail sensor is something died when we were on holiday. Fuel air commanded equivalence ratio, ignition timing advance for number 1 cylinder, air intake temperature, so you can see whether your cold air intake's working or not. Let's try that. So if I do all this, get these going, right, if I now start the engine, so we've got a bit going on there. Ambient air temperature 21 degrees. It says it is down there as well. That can't be right. Ignition timing advance for number 1 cylinder. I mean, this is why distributorless ignitions work better than old distributors, isn't it? Look, it's ECU's changing it to keep the idle smooth. Air intake temperature 17 degrees. So if I apply some revs, I take it to like 2000. Look at that advance, wow. I mean, it can go crazy with the advance because it can back it off again instantly if it detects knock. So air intake temperature, fuel rail pressure, engine RPM, engine coolant temperature is raising. Oh, catalytic converter's woken up. So what's the airflow rate? So if you had a dodgy airflow sensor or something like that, you could put it on the graph like this, and you'd be able to watch it. So that's the amount of air, the weight of the air, the mass of the air, if you like, coming through the sensor, going into the inlet. And like, obviously it increases because I open the throttle. That's full throttle. And then you can record it as it does it. So you can look back at it later on and think, right, I'm going to record all those things together, and then I'm going to go back and sit down on my sofa, get a beer out, and try and figure out what's going on with my car. Now, what I did want to try and figure out is there is a way on here of it's bidirectional, so it means you can do actuation tests. If you want to make it operate something, if you think you've got a fault with something in the car, you can make it operate it to see if it works or not. I can test everything. A shift indicator lamp. This doesn't even have an automatic gearbox. Shift. What? Shift indicator light red. What? No way. Look at that. I didn't even know it did that. That's if it's a power shift, I suppose, or they call them something slightly different. Yes, you can try everything. You can check all sorts of things. You can check, let's see if the fuel gauge works. I mean, I know it does. It doesn't look like it does because it has very little fuel in it, but because it's juicy. I can make it go up. Oh, look at this. Oh, that looks so satisfying. A full tank of fuel. Ah. And then left turn signal indicator. Ah, okay. Let's go fast. Vroom, 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 vroom. Look at it. Oh, it's going mad. Oh, what a thumbnail that would be. Doing 160 when not moving. So that's quite, okay, so that's quite good. I mean, really, I don't know how often you'd need that, but it's fun. Read the data stream. Local window. Oh, this is, oh, because of course the doors have got their own ECUs, so. Oh, this is a toy, isn't it? So the local power window switch status for the passenger door is off. Ah, now that's interesting. So that's the driver's side I'm doing that with. So if I try it on the passenger side, look if I can reach. No, yeah, look. Up and down. Passenger door lock switch. If I lock the driver's door, passenger door should lock. And if I try and unlock the driver's door, there we go. Passenger's front window position sensor. How many different positions are there? 1,967. Turn signals. This is silly, isn't it? Right, so yeah. Newsflash, guy works out what OBDII is. Read the ECU serial number, configure the yaw rate sensor. So anything you change yourself. So if you're a DIY guy on your driveway, or girl, this could be useful. I mean, you can just see the depth of things you can do with it. Well, I didn't get to figure out what my battery problem was because it's not doing it. So I suppose I should try that again in, well, early in the morning when it's cold. Now this is a useful piece of kit. This is decent. As long as it fits your car, I will give it another go on the C6. And if I can get it working, I thought while I was talking earlier on, maybe it's to do with the power. Maybe the C6 doesn't have the power at the pin that makes this thing, I don't know, it doesn't seem, it's unlikely. I think I'm just going to have to admit it doesn't work with my C6. So if you've got a C6 and you want to try it, bring it down and I'll see. We'll plug it in and see if it actually works. But that said, for cars like C6s, you would probably keep Lexia anyway, or Diag box. You wouldn't faff about, you know, having something that can cover multiple bases. But if you're like a jobbing mechanic, or you've got like 3 cars in your family or whatever, you know, and they're all OBD2, something like that could be useful. Because if you get any problems and you're out and about and you know, you get a glitch or something, you keep that in the car. You know, when we went on holiday to France in this, I took the laptop with Forescan on it. If I hadn't taken that, I wouldn't have known that the fuel rail pressure was the thing, the fuel rail pressure sensor, sorry, was the thing that was causing it to play up, because, well, we wouldn't have been able to test it, and the codes weren't being stored. So that's a useful piece of kit. I would, yeah, that's not bad. You can get cheaper versions of this. You don't have to go as high as this one. This one's about 400 quid, which compared to some of the top end stuff is very cheap. But compared to a little handheld OBD reader, is, you know, they could be £30 or something like that, or even the ones that you have a little Bluetooth dongle in your phone, which TopDon do also do. But those aren't often as in depth, you know. This thing can do coding, it can do resets, it can do actuator tests and things as we've seen. So yeah, I recommend it. You know, the only thing I would say is I mean, it's fast enough, it's not glitchy, it's not buggy. Some of the language conversions are a bit translations are a bit iffy, and it doesn't work on the C6. However, if I do get it to work on the C6, I will add that in after this, because there's one other thing I'm going to try. As I say, there's a separate power cable, and it's possible that the C6 needs it powered up. I don't know, but the Lexia is powered up, so powered by the laptop. So yeah, we'll have a look and see. Also got a Saxo at home, which is a 1999 Saxo, and that has an OBDII plug. It doesn't necessarily have to talk to OBDII software because of the year of the car. It's possible that Citroen just started putting the plugs in early on, but it might be that it won't talk to this. If it does talk to it, I'll pop some of that footage on as well, because that would be quite impressive, because that's it's a VTS engine and a VTR, and if that works and that talks to it, I'd be quite impressed, to be honest, because a lot of generic OBDII readers do not talk to that, so that'll be a good test. If either of those two things work, I will add them on at the end of the video here. If not, thanks for watching. The link below shows you how to go to TopDon. You don't have to buy the £400 one. There are cheaper options out there. This is the all singing, all dancing, bells and whistles one that does all the coding and everything like that. Not all of them do. They got a lot of products. So yeah, check them out. Don't think that's going to work. So the auto VIN didn't work. The Saxo is connected though. This could be interesting. So this car is not OBDII, technically. And it doesn't always work with like universal code readers and things. And actually, if it's using the VIN of the ECU is different to the VIN of the car, because it's got a different engine in it. So if we go through this way, right, so the Saxo is connected at the moment. What engine does it have? It has that one. Oh, hang on, is it that one or is it that one up the top? Top right. MM1AP, it might be that one. No, it didn't like that. So I'm just going backwards to try the other. The MM, I think it's the other one. I think it's this one at the top. So read fault codes. Got any fault codes on the Saxo? None. Read data stream. Injection. Oh look, we can do all this with the Saxo. Throttle position. Is currently idle. If I apply the throttle, mid, full. So it has idle, mid and full. That's it. Battery voltage. This car also has voltage problems at the moment. That's ignition advance per cylinder. So go battery voltage. So if I start it, oh, turned it off by accident. There we go. So it's charging okay at the moment, but over time it drops. It can, in fact, if you drive it long enough, it can drop down to about 12. That's perfect as it is at the moment, but it doesn't stay like that, unfortunately, unless this is lying. That's the little thing that I've been using to read it. Get close to trying to expose on that because it's too bright. That little thing says 13.8, this says 14.1. So if I fast idle it, weirdly it actually drops. It's under reading by about 0.3 of a volt, that gauge down there, but we'll figure that one out another time maybe. So it's idling at 960 RPM, although I suppose it is on cold start at the moment. But injector timing, yeah, this is actually quite good. So it thinks the air temp is 19 degrees. It can't be. Yeah, Smack said that as well. Battery voltage is 14. Canister valve state, I guess that's 1 or 0, open or closed. Road speed 0. Stepper motor is slowly closing, look, as it warms up. There you go, a little bit of bonus footage. It's obviously not as complex as the S-Max, but you are able to read certain things, and the only other device I've ever connected to this that worked was Diagnostics. So fair play to this little thing. It is working on a Saxo that's got an ECU from a car from 1998.